In this video, I am going to be walking you through the process of creating an Adobe Premiere project file so that you can import your files, organize them appropriately, create your timeline sequences so that you can edit, grade, and apply graphic overlays for your talking head videos or anything that's basically straight to the camera like this. This video is it's the first of maybe 3 or 4 videos that is to help you create multi-camera talking head videos. The first part, and what this video is all about, is going to go into the creation and organizing of the Adobe Premiere. And this is the most important part of the whole process, because if you do this right, everything else is going to kind of fall into place and also builds upon the principles that we're going to be talking about here. Number 1, watch this all the way through. Don't do it like step by step yet. Watch it once all the way through, and then once you've watched it, then go ahead and do that with your own project file where you might have shot something with multiple cameras. When I say multiple cameras, at least 2 cameras, and then you'll be able to bring that in and create the multi-camera sequence. So to get started, first thing we're going to do is going to go ahead and create a new project file in Adobe Premiere. So we create a new project file. From here, what you do is you just call it something. In this case, I'm going to be calling it Fatih. In this video, what he does is, the video that I'm importing, he actually does some recitation. So, and we did 2 cameras. One is shot on a Canon M6 Mark II, like this one, and the other one is shot on a DSLR Canon 70D. And the way that we framed it is, let me just actually go ahead and import that and I'll show you exactly. So where am I going to save this? So first thing you want to do is name your project file, TUT_01. Right? And obviously you want to name the file something that makes sense. Now, when it comes to the creation of the actual folders, now this is my own organization of files. I'll be able to go back to all the way back to like 2003 for all the projects I've ever worked on. And the reason for that is because of my meticulous method of organizing files. Essentially what I do is I put the year first, then I put the month, and then I put the date of the creation of the project. And so, or sometimes I might not put the date itself because it's like the only project I've done this month. But as you notice, if there's multiple projects, then it's a good practice to put the date too. So once you create that, right, then you want to make sure there's essentially 4 essential folders that are in there. It doesn't matter if you're using a Mac or Windows. These are the 4 folders you want to have. You want to have a project folder, and the way I name it is _project, _final. This is the final edit that you render out. You want to have an AV folder, actually, audio and video. Essentially all of your assets that you've produced or you captured, whether it's the 2 cameras and your audio. In this case, what we did was we recorded on well, you won't see the files here. Yeah, I'll show you when I bring it in. But all your audio video files are going to be in that folder. And then frame grabs. This is a good thing to have as a folder, because as you're going through your footage, maybe there's certain frames in there that you might want to use as thumbnails or showcase, or even when you're essentially grading your footage, you want to match between the 2 cameras. It's good to organize all that stuff into those folders. These are 4 main folders that you want to definitely maintain and have. So once you create your project folder, go ahead and go into the project folder, say select folder, and that's where the project file and all of the essential related files that Premiere creates are going to be there. So you go ahead and click OK. So it creates your project file. Now you'll notice a few things. Now, if this is your first time using Premiere, you may want to just kind of slow this down a little bit, but I'm going to give you a quick overview layout. When you create your project file, you can have certain workspaces up at the top here. The only one that you need to worry about in this video is assembly, because that's what we're going to be doing. So, but the ones that we're going to be working on is assembly, edit, and color. And so that's essentially, this is the workflow that Premiere recommends. Sometimes I switch between these 2, but don't worry about that for now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to assembly, right click, go on import. All right, and then from here, go back to your main directory and you select the AV folder that you created and all your assets are in. You'll notice in here, that I have the audio file, edited audio file. It's the assumption here is that everything that you captured is ready to go, is ready to edit. So my process for any of these things is that I capture the video in camera, and then I capture the audio separately into a recorder, whether it's a Tascam or a Zoom or something. And then I'll clean up that audio. And so I'm not covering that here. The assumption is that you're at this phase because you've got the audio where you want it to be. Maybe you're not editing the audio, you just captured it good. So the idea here is you've captured all your materials, they're all imported here. All you got to do is go back to the folder, make sure the folder is selected or highlighted, and then click on import folder. Import the folder, comes in, boom, all your assets are right here. Now you go to new item, sequence, that lets you choose a sequence. I'll just go ahead and pick whatever is default. It's going to be changed later anyway. Now, and then from here, I select the one of the video files that I want to edit, and I simply drag that into the timeline and click on change sequence settings. I want the sequence settings to be similar to what the file is. So change sequence settings. Now, just as a disclaimer, the two video files I have here, the second one is the second angle, right? You'll notice that the second angle itself is not 4K, it's 1080p. So what I like to do is I like to edit in the 4K timeline. You don't have to if you don't want to, that's cool. Just understand that whenever you edit in a timeline that's different from the source file, you're gonna have to adjust the source file to match the timeline. So in this case, I have a 4K video here, and I have a 1080p video here. When I drag something into the timeline, the first thing I want to do is I want to expand it. So on the keyboard, I hit the slash button here. That's a hotkey. So I just go ahead and press that, and essentially it fills up the whole screen. And from here, what I do is I select the 1080p footage, and I go to effects, and I make this 200%. And that basically fills up the entire timeline. On the other hand, if you're dealing with just 1080p footage, all you have to do is, I'll just show you what happens when you don't have that. So I create a new sequence, right? Just select whatever is default. And then from here, I just select the 1080p footage, and it'll still ask me, clips does not match the sequence settings. That's cool. So just change the sequence to match the clip, right? And then from here, you'll notice that it fills up the entire screen. But if you take the 4K, drop it in here, boom, it's like, whoa, that thing is too big. In this case, what you have to do is go to effects controls, go to the scale, make that 50%, right? And boom, it fits the entire timeline. So if you're editing in a 1080p timeline, if there's any 4K footage, you have to scale that down, downscale it. If you're editing in a 4K timeline and they have any 1080p footage, you have to scale that up to fit. So 100% goes to 200%, or 100% goes to 50% if you're downscaling. Just simple thing that you just need to be cognizant of. So if you import that stuff, you're like, yo, it's not fitting. Well, obviously. Ideally though, you want to shoot everything in the same format. But in this case, I always like to shoot 4K if I can, because that allows me leeway to make adjustments. So at the end of the day, so for example, if I'm editing in a 1080p timeline, that's great. So for example, like if I look at here, right, and this is just basic control settings, right? You got your timeline. The way I'm expanding this is I'm just literally hovering over the thing. I press alternate, and I scroll up, and that just expands everything, right? So essentially this allows me to see or make the timeline visible or invisible. So this way in my preview window, I'll be able to see the appropriate settings. Now, this is the key thing that you need. Is basically you take the audio also and you drag that in. The challenge though, the trick here is, because you shot everything separately, you need to synchronize everything. Now, normally in traditional Hollywood style, people, what they would do is they would have this clapper. Traditional Hollywood, you have this clapper, boom, and that allows you to basically write down what the scene is, whatnot. When you do that, it allows you to see a spike in the audio, and you can synchronize your audio and video without any issues, but you have to do that manually. One of the great things about technology is that all you have to do is literally highlight everything, right click, and you click on synchronize, right? And then click OK. And what that will do is, because all of the audio and video is more or less the same, it'll line everything up perfectly, done, just like that. Now, how long will this take? Depends on how much footage you have, how long the footage is, and how fast or slow your computer is. But it's one of those things where if it's going to take a while because your computer is slow or you got a lot of files, then it might be something that you just kind of tell it to synchronize and just walk away. And that's really it. One thing though, synchronize will not work if you have, say, let's say you have the same, like you have continuous audio recording, right? But then you have multiple takes. So I'll give you an example where let's just say these are 3 different files, right? And so, and I'm just gonna separate this out because let's see, import it in, and then I highlight all 3 and I click that. Synchronize is gonna be grayed out. How would you synchronize 3 different files that are in the same take of continuous audio recording? Well, then what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to spread them out over multiple audio tracks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and now I can highlight and then I'll tell it to synchronize. Boom, it's available. Click OK, and it's all synchronized. And then once, all you have to do now is just select, bring it all back into the same timeline or same layer of the timeline, and everything is in sync. And that's it. So let me just go ahead and do everything that I just did here, bring it back to where it was. And so this is step number 1. That is essentially very important because you need to make sure that everything is in sync. Step number 2 within this whole process is now all about creating the appropriate timelines for the multi-camera edit sequence. So here's what I would do. First thing you want to do is select the audio, select not the audio, the video and the audio. You right click, or before you actually do that, make sure everything's lined up, right? It's all the way adjacent to the end, right? So from here, select, right click, make, let's see here, where's that, make subsequence, boom, done. Then you'll see there's a sequence created, subsequence 01. I would say name it into something, whatever the shot is. So sequence 01, sub 01, and then I would add that as an extension underscore ACAM, right? Boom. And then I will drag that right into the timeline. And I do the same thing for the second track. Right click, and then I click on make subsequence, and then underscore BCAM, and drag that over, put that up on top. One thing that's really important though, open up each of these sequences, turn off the audio for the video and leave the audio on for the actual audio that you had recorded. And then same thing here in terms of the BCAM sequence. I turn off the audio for that, go back to the main sequence here. And now what I'm going to do is highlight both of those 2 tracks that I just imported, right click, make another subsequence, and I call this subsequence 03 multicam, right? And I just simply drag that right into the timeline, overwriting the other one, delete that one because now they're both nested within that one timeline. Right click, multi-camera, enable, right? How do you know multi-camera is enabled? All you have to do is now just drag open this preview window, right click on it, and I go to display mode. Actually, I'm in source, right? Make sure you're on program. Right click, display mode, multi-camera, boom. And then from here, you'll notice, you'll see both multi-camera sequences ready to edit as you go through. So that's it. Now that the multi-camera sequence is created, how do we go about editing it? And then after we edit, how do we go about grading it to make it look good, look better, assuming you've already got everything, like you got your exposure settings right and whatnot. So next step is basically color grading to make it look good, to make the angles match. And so stay tuned.